Please stop scrolling and listen carefully. Choose one, because this is not a random message or a word that applies to everyone. This notification is divine. And if your spirit has been detecting changes, endings, or removals in your life, this message confirms what heaven has already been whispering to your soul. For example, God is currently communicating to you that 2 items will be removed from your life in the next 9 days. Furthermore, you cannot ignore this. Not at any later time. Not when it's convenient. Not after another delay. This moment is significant because your departure from your life is linked to the next destination that God has planned for you. You have been identified, distinguished, and summoned to a plane of existence above the mundane. This is exactly why your life has changed so dramatically. This is why some battles have been more intense. Some divisions have been more profound. Furthermore, some seasons have been more intense than others appear to be. You are not disregarded. You are not being penalized. You're currently being prepared. You remember some items because they are familiar to you. Things you tolerated because they provided a sense of safety. Additionally, items that you carried because you felt obligated to do so. However, God is emphasizing that what was once a part of your life for a short time will not be a permanent fixture in the future. Certain items have passed their expiration date. Certain attachments have exceeded their maximum capacity. You've encountered resistance from certain weights as you progress to the next level. And now, heaven has intervened with force. You may be taken aback by the impending departure. However, it is critical to avoid confusing removal with rejection. Do not equate divine separation with loss. God is clearing space. God is dismantling hidden chains. God is leading you away from the situation that has sapped your energy, obscured your discernment, and delayed your assignment. Therefore, prior to proceeding, I would like you to respond with faith. If you are aware that this word is speaking directly to your spirit, please leave a comment below with the number 777 as your declaration that you are ready for God's removal and release. Additionally, if you believe this message is important, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with a friend who needs confirmation that God is currently speaking, moving, and changing destinies. You've known for a long time that your life would never be normal, no matter how hard you tried to fit in. Something in your spirit was constantly keeping you apart from what was common, comfortable, and easy. There has always been a burden on your calling, a demand on your soul, a sense that heaven would not allow you to go through life carelessly, as those without divine purpose do. This is why some doors closed, despite your pleas to stay open. This is why certain people left when you were confident they would stay. This is why seasons of isolation suddenly engulfed you, forcing you to live in environments where your identity was no longer dependent on human validation, companionship, or applause. What appeared to be rejection was usually a form of protection. Consecration frequently caused feelings of abandonment. God was removing you from situations that could not support the assignment on your life. He was instructing your spirit in secret places, teaching you to hear Him without making a noise, to trust Him without constant signs, and to stand without relying on others' approval. The Bible states, "Before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee, and before thou camest forth out of the womb, I sanctified thee." Jeremiah chapter 1, verse 5. This implies that your existence was never accidental. Neither is the current season. You were not rescued just to survive. You were summoned to transport an item. You have a divine distinction. The warfare that has surrounded your life has frequently served as evidence of this difference. The pressure, the resistance, misunderstandings. The intense breaking seasons did not indicate that you were forgotten. They were evidence that your life had been contested because of its spiritual value. God has halted your journey for a valid reason. He has been developing your strength, sharpness, and independence from entities that are impractical in the direction He is taking you. As a result, do not be alarmed when He begins the process of removing what is no longer suitable for your upcoming season. Heaven does not arbitrarily remove you. Amo. Heaven is making a distinction between what is eternal and what is temporary. There is a part of your life that has become so ingrained in your daily routine that you have stopped questioning whether it was meant to strengthen you or silently constrain you. It persisted for a long time, establishing itself as an essential component of your persona. It spoke in a voice so similar to your own pain that you mistook it for the truth. It offered solace in your most vulnerable moments, company on your most lonely nights, and respite during seasons when your heart was too tired to seek answers. It is currently being revealed by God. Because the comfort you've been talking about is a chain. Your discernment has been harmed, your resolve has been weakened, and your spirit has been instructed to accept anything less than the divine will for your life, despite the fact that you thought it was helping you survive. At first glance, some attachments appear to be harmless. They seem to be comprehensible. They seem to be acquainted. They seem to be indispensable. However, not all items that you keep with you are allowed to accompany you. Not everything that once soothed your wounds is welcome to sit alongside your calling. Some relationships numb the pain while starving the spirit. Some habits provided temporary relief, but they also quietly slowed your recovery. You excused certain patterns because they were more convenient than making changes. However, you were already aware, in your heart of hearts, that they were insufficient for the person God was shaping you into. This explains why the separation will be painful. You're not just losing an item. You are being separated from the skills you developed to cope with your brokenness. Removing an object that has been in close proximity to one's wounds for an extended period of time is analogous to removing a part of oneself. That is why you may weep over the things God is taking away. This is why your body may be in anguish over something that your spirit knows it cannot withstand. However, this should be heard clearly. God is not removing what is beneficial to you. He is eliminating what has become overly comfortable in an environment designed to promote freedom. He is confronting the fabricated refuge, false peace, an emotional crutch, the hidden compromise. As God attempted to summon your new self, you maintained a connection with your old self. This is not an example of cruelty. Mercy wields a sword. This is a love that refuses to leave, entangled in a situation that no longer fits your destiny. And what if your heart has been feeling that pressure? What about the unrest? What about the holy discomfort? This is due to the separation process that has already begun in heaven. Therefore, be open with yourself. What have you been holding on to that God has been urging you to let go? What have you been defending that has been quietly keeping you from becoming the person you were meant to be? The second thing God intends to remove is not limited to your surroundings. It resides within you. This is why the following section is even more profound. Because sometimes the most significant obstacle in one's life is not an individual, not a location, a situation that is not immediately apparent. However, the weight you've been carrying for so long now feels like your own skin. Fear may have followed you from season to season, whispering that disappointment is always around the corner. It's possible that the guilt stems from a previous chapter, which God has already forgiven. However, you have continued to practice secretly. It could be the exhausting conviction that you must always be the one to get through everything alone, self-doubt, grief, or shame. This is the concealed weight that does not always show up on your profile. However, they have an impact on your prayer life, the way in which you love, your level of trust. In addition, consider how you perceive yourself when no one is present. Furthermore, God is indicating that this burden cannot be carried over into the next season. Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1 instructs us to abandon all burdens and the sin that so easily afflicts us. It is important to note that the Bible does not only address the concept of sin, but also the concept of weight. Even if something does not appear to be openly harmful to others, it can impede your obedience, cloud your faith, and weaken your movement. Heaven did not assign you the entire weight you have been carrying. It was the result of silent battles, family grief, betrayal, disappointment, wounds, and nights when your soul learned to protect itself by preparing for the worst. However, God did not create you to live in a constrained state, bound by invisible chains. He did not contact you to spend your future in negotiations based on outdated fears. He did not protect you for the entirety of your survival. Rather, He allowed your inner life to become entangled in what should have been severed long ago. This is why you have been feeling such intense tension in your spirit. God is putting pressure on the areas where you previously concealed yourself, resonating with the sorrow you hid, confronting the fabrications you've accepted as true, and pulling you out of sync with everything that has kept you small. As the weight begins to dissipate, you may experience a strange sense of emptiness, because the familiarity of heaviness makes experiencing freedom appear unnatural. However, don't be concerned about that moment. You will not be consumed by emptiness. It will be the location where God replenishes your fortitude, your clarity, your tranquility, as well as your true identity. This is not the foundation you're leaving behind. It is what has been sitting on top of it for an extended period of time. This is the section that most people are reluctant to hear. Removal appears to be a sacred act until it is made personal. It is simple to commemorate a breakthrough when it is accompanied by immediate relief, visible blessings, and new opportunities. It is much more difficult to refer to an object as divine when it is the result of separation, silence, and the painful removal of something you had previously asked God to preserve. However, this is the moment when your faith will be put to the ultimate test. Because God frequently removes before revealing, takes away before establishing, and empties your hands before entrusting you with the next step. The pain you're feeling is not arbitrary. It does not indicate that the heavens have turned against you. It is the discomfort that comes with the transition. It's the sound of old agreements dissolving. Trembling occurs when God begins to deconstruct what your flesh has grown accustomed to. However, your spirit was never meant to be subjected to such conditions indefinitely. Some things must cause pain in order to leave, as they encircle the wounded parts of your being. They gained access after long periods of anticipation, disappointment, loneliness, and grief. They developed the ability to make themselves feel indispensable. This is why their loss is so perplexing. A part of you is aware that they are limiting your freedom. However, another part of you recalls how they comforted you when you were vulnerable. This is the point at which a large number of people postpone their liberation. They continue to return to the things that once provided them with comfort, even after God revealed that it is no longer capable of providing for their future. However, God's love for you is so great that He cannot allow you to build your life on something that has only sustained you during a difficult time. According to John chapter 15, verse 2, he purifies every branch that bears fruit, so that it may bear more fruit. It is worth noting that he prunes the fruitful branch rather than the dead one. This implies that cutting in your life is not a sign of rejection. It serves as proof of intention. God does not treat you as if you have been abandoned. He treats you as a person who is qualified for advancement. He perceives upcoming events. And because he recognizes this, he is determined to keep your calling from being perpetuated by hidden weights, false refuges, old dependencies, and misaligned attachments. So yes, this section is painful. It is painful when God closes the door you were still trying to open. It's painful when he eliminates the person you hoped would understand your situation. It's painful when he touches the inner places you thought you'd be able to manage later. However, it is critical to differentiate between pain and cruelty. This severance is distinguished by compassion. This disruption provides protection. This holy refusal to give up your connection to what is unable to travel to the destination to which you are being dispatched is marked by love. Finally, I'd like to ask you an honest question. Have you ever wept over the loss of something, only to realize that God was protecting you by removing it? Why would this moment be any different than the previous one? What is the reason why the God who has carried you through every previous breakup has suddenly failed you now? He will not keep what he eliminates. He intentionally removes what he allows to fall. He allows it to collapse because your future is too important to be built on something designed for a finite time. As a result, do not resume the actions that God is undoing, even if your heart is trembling as this separation unfolds. Continue to be stationary. Continue to be open. Keep your integrity in his presence. Because of the upcoming revelation. However, false support must be removed first. Clarity is approaching. However, the counterfeit item must first be disclosed. Liberation is near. However, the chain must first be broken. And you will realize that it was never a loss of something important when it broke. It was the liberation of a sacred element within you. You are currently in a perilous situation. Not because God has abandoned you, but because waiting in this season has consequences. This is not a particularly gentle transition. This is not a trivial modification. This functions as a spiritual boundary. Furthermore, the gravity of the situation cannot be understated. The events that occur right now will have an impact on how you transition into the next chapter of your life. When God begins to take away what is no longer yours, you are unable to cling to it because of fear, nostalgia, confusion, or emotional vulnerability. If you resist this process, you will not obstruct God's plan. However, you have the ability to postpone your own tranquility. Increase the duration of your own break. In addition, the road is made more difficult than it was intended. This is why the warning should be taken seriously. During certain seasons, compromise appears to be a safe choice. In cases where the delay appears reasonable, where there is an extra attachment, there is another justification. Just one more instance of following the previous pattern appears insignificant. However, in a divine season of separation, nothing is small. What you tolerate now has the potential to obstruct your hearing, weaken your obedience, and delay your arrival. This is why your spirit has been restless. This is the reason for the disruption of peace. This is why the things that used to satisfy you no longer speak to your soul. God is not just encouraging you to undergo a transformation. He is confronting every aspect of you that persists in negotiating with what he has already determined is unsuitable for your future. Furthermore, the reality is harsh. Some people lose years because they continue to mourn the things that heaven has instructed them to let go of. Certain people remain emotionally attached because they maintain contact with the fragments that God has severed. Some people fail to achieve clarity because they continue to ask God to bless the things He is attempting to eliminate. According to Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 to 6, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not rely on your own understanding. Acknowledge Him in everything you do. He will guide you." However, in this situation, relying solely on one's own understanding is dangerous, because your emotions will drive you to protect the information God is disclosing. Hold on to what is familiar because your pain will remind you. Your apprehension will tell you that emptiness is more harmful than bondage. However, this is completely false. What is truly dangerous is becoming entangled in what saps your authority, confuses your identity, and keeps your spirit entangled in the past. When God directs you to advance, please take this very seriously. Allow God to shake something. Allow God to reveal something. Do not attempt to reopen something that God has closed. This is not the time to be emotionally conflicted, passive, or only partially aware. This is the time to act quickly, surrender completely, and put one's trust in God. Because the issue at hand is more than just your comfort. It is also your spiritual momentum, clarity, freedom, and readiness for the releases that heaven is about to bring. The sensation of emptiness does not represent the end of your existence. It is the location where God begins the process of reconstruction, free of interference, contamination, or distraction from anything that was causing your soul to be pulled in opposite directions. Many people feel anxious at this point. Simple, primarily due to their ability to persevere in the face of chaos. They excel at functioning in the presence of pain. They have the ability to maintain momentum while under pressure. However, they are unable to remain in the silence that follows divine removal. Furthermore, the silence may be perceived as severe. It may appear that something has been overly stripped. It appears that a large number of resources have been appropriated. It's as if life has suddenly become unfamiliar. However, it is critical not to misinterpret this situation. Silence is not indicative of abandonment. Emptiness is not considered a form of punishment. The absence of familiarity does not mean you are lost. It indicates that your previous environment can no longer define you. God is creating space around you because He is also creating truth inside you. For far too long, your identity has been forced to contend with layers of disappointment, words spoken over you in pain, false labels, false responsibilities, false loyalties, and false versions of strength that have taught you to bear burdens that God never intended. However, those layers are now being removed. Furthermore, the exposure could be perceived as intense. Heaven is more than just a transformation of one's environment. Heaven is challenging your self-concept. God is not only eradicating individuals, habits, fears, and burdens. He is also erasing the version of you that has developed the ability to live in chains and refers to this as maturity. He is breaking the established pattern of enduring in the absence of tranquility. He is dismantling the myth that it is normal for someone with a calling to feel perpetual heaviness. He is completing the agreement you made with emotional starvation, confusion, and exhaustion. This explains why this stage is so profound. It isn't just a superficial transformation. It is the process of spiritual rebuilding. According to Isaiah chapter 61, verse 3, God gives beauty for ashes, joy for mourning, and praise for the spirit of heaviness. This implies that He will never eliminate without substituting. He never empties without refilling. He never exposes a wound without also allowing it to heal. As a result, if this season has been marked by a rawness that has made you feel as if you are being yanked from every false place where you had previously found solace, stay strong. The same God who cleanses your life also restores your inner world. The same hand that cuts away also heals. The same voice that urges, "Let it go," also asserts, "I possess something more significant." Your salary has not been reduced. The process of perfecting you is underway. You're not being erased. Your identity is being revealed. And what comes after this will not be the exhausted version of yourself who just managed to survive. It will become more lucid, more robust, a more elevated version that can now walk without apology. This hour brings a directive from above. It is not gentle because the issue at hand is too serious for soft language. Refrain from returning. Don't reopen what God has closed. Do not reconnect emotionally with what He has already deemed unworthy of your next season. Refrain from thinking about the past, your routines, your conversations, or your hidden desires could be the very thing from which God is attempting to deliver you. This is the point at which many destinies take a pause. It wasn't due to a breakdown in communication with God. Despite God's previous declaration that the familiar was no longer safe, the individual persisted in returning to it. It is impossible to walk in power while carrying the burdens of yesterday into tomorrow's calling. It is impossible to ask God for elevation while defending the very patterns that keep your soul low. Some of you are currently experiencing the start of the separation. However, your emotions are attempting to reconcile with the fact that your spirit recognizes that the event has ended. You remember the solace in your heart. However, it disregards the cost. The relief is etched into your flesh. However, it ignores the bondage. As a result, it is critical that you maintain a ferocious attitude toward obedience at this time. Not emotionally charged. An absence of ambivalence. Not partially surrendered. Abrasive. Because whatever departs from your life during this season must be allowed to leave completely. Alternatively, it will continue to try to communicate with the versions of you that God is eliminating. Certain topics do not require additional discussion. However, there is one more opportunity. An additional defense. Alternatively, an additional delay could occur. They require separation. They require closure. They require a specific number. According to Luke, chapter 9, verse 62, no man is suitable for God's kingdom after putting his hand to the plow and looking back. This isn't because God is unkind. Backward longing impedes forward movement. When you reflect on the past with desire, it weakens your step, confuses your focus, and depletes your strength for the future. Therefore, stop protecting it if it has been revealed by God. Do not try to stabilize it if God has shaken it. If God has removed the peace from it, do not refer to it as your portion. It is not the time to save what is being disassembled in heaven. This hour presents an ideal opportunity to fully align with God. Allow the broken to break. Finish what is coming to an end. Allow what is departing to leave. Because the polar opposite of this ruthless obedience is authority, not emptiness, not loneliness, but alignment, not confusion, but clarity. You will never refer to that old bondage as comfort again after witnessing what God was protecting. The next 9 days are not typical. Furthermore, avoid treating them casually. This is a season of transition, a narrow but significant gap between the past and the future. Furthermore, the spiritual environment in which you live is constantly evolving. You may notice that some aspects are becoming more intense. Unusual pressure, deeper discernment, sudden clarity, strange distance, or an unease that refuses to let you settle into what was previously considered normal may be felt. Do not be alarmed if this occurs. Don't misinterpret the movement. The sensation of disruption could actually be a divine rearrangement. Heaven may be uprooting what was never meant to stay permanently rooted in your life, causing what appears to be instability. During the next 9 days, be aware of what begins to loosen its grip on you. Focus on the things that no longer satisfy you. What no longer connects with your soul. What is no longer permitted to be at the center of your emotions. Some things will begin to fade without effort. Others may resist on the way out. In either case, do not mistake resistance for permanence. Qing. Sometimes the reason something is fighting so hard to stay is because it knows its time is up. This is why it is critical to maintain spiritual vigilance. Keep your sanity. Use caution when speaking. Maintain confidentiality in your agreements. Don't criticize God's actions just because they make you uncomfortable as they progress. When heaven is establishing order, don't call it chaos. When God carries out a separation, do not consider it a loss. According to Ecclesiastes, chapter 3, verse 1, there is a season and time for everything under the heavens. This implies that timing is important. And if now is the time for release, resisting it will only exacerbate the strain in your soul. There may be some indications today. Conversations that unexpectedly reveal the truth. Doors that close abruptly. Emotional bonds deteriorate. Inner burdens begin to ease. Patterns appear to be unsustainable. Even when God instills such profound conviction that you are unable to refute the evidence He has presented to you. When this happens, take action right away. Do not postpone obedience in the hope of achieving complete emotional closure. Closure isn't always the first priority. Occasionally, obedience is prioritized. Peace prevails. Occasionally, the first step is to release. Later, comprehension occurs. Therefore, proceed with caution. Say a profound prayer. Also, continue to exercise caution. Fear is not the main focus of these 9 days. However, the subject matter is serious. Heaven moves with purpose. An issue is currently being resolved. A part of something is being severed. Something is currently being positioned. And at the end of this crossing, you will no longer be in the same location. You will recognize that God has set a boundary between your previous and current seasons. Now it is critical that you understand the true nature of this season. God is not simply removing what isn't rightfully there. He is preparing you for what's coming. This is not simply a message about separation. This is a message about preparation. Heaven does not empty your hands without first anticipating what will be placed in them. God does not destroy false support unless He is willing to become your true foundation in a way that is deeper than you have ever experienced. As a result, it is impossible to assess this moment solely based on what is leaving. It is also necessary to assess the extent to which its departure has enabled the emergence of new opportunities. Several of you have requested clarification. But clarity necessitates exposure. Several of you have expressed a desire for tranquility. Nonetheless, the end of certain conflicts is essential for peace. Several of you have requested acceleration. However, acceleration requires the removal of weight. You have requested that God intervene. Furthermore, He is currently in the process of moving. However, his movements are not always comfortable. Disruption may precede the sensation of deliverance on occasion. It occasionally appears disorienting before settling into a clear direction. However, do not let temporary discomfort cloud your understanding of eternal purpose. Those who love God will discover that everything works for their benefit. To those who are called for His purpose. This does not mean that everything is pleasant. It implies that a more enlightened hand than yours governs everything. Even this. Even now. Even the portion that causes cardiac tremors. God is meticulously orchestrating your life. He is eliminating the element that would have caused confusion regarding your subsequent actions. He is suppressing any noise that would have competed with His voice. He is disclosing what would have corroded your discernment if it had been concealed at this time. Therefore, refrain from remaining in this hour solely to inquire. What am I forfeiting? Ask instead. What is God creating space for? What will be able to flourish once this is eliminated? What is the assignment? Peace. What is it? What is the nature of healing? What authority has been delayed as a result of the items I continued to carry? Why? Because the truth is, the consequences of this separation are substantial. The process is weighty because the upcoming season is significant. God would not be engaging in such a profound conversation with your spirit if the challenges that lay ahead necessitated only a superficial version of you. False. He is currently in the process of constructing a vessel that is clean, a more acute hearing, a heart that is more stable. Additionally, a more liberated spirit. Therefore, elevate your head. The removal is genuine. However, the promise is also a reality. The rupture is genuine. Nevertheless, the structure is identical. And what God is arranging on the other side of this will demonstrate that every painful release was preparing the way for something holy. Our Father in heaven, I come to you with a heart that is fully open. 5. Furthermore, I present each and every difficulty to you. No fear is unfounded. Each attachment, every concealed anguish, and every silent struggle that has attempted to linger within me for an extended period. You are the God. Additionally, there is nothing concealed from you in my life. You have observed the items that I have carried in public. Additionally, you are privy to the items that I have kept in my personal possession. The items that I have endeavored to relinquish have continued to resurface. Areas in which my body has opposed what my spirit has already recognized. And the parts of me that continue to tremble at the prospect of losing what feels like home. However, I am not approaching you today to request that you preserve what you have already determined is unsuitable for my future. I arrive in a state of submission. Amen. I am prepared to allow you to perform the tasks that are uniquely yours. My Lord, in the event that 2 items must be removed from my life during this season, afterward, allow them to disperse entirely. Eliminate the source of my weakness. Eliminate the obstructions that have obscured my ability to discern. Eliminate those elements that have been interfering with your voice. Eliminate all fabricated refuges. Each concealed chain. Each and every emotional burden. Afraid of every agreement. Each attachment to an object that no longer aligns with your plan for my life. I am not interested in adhering to the things that you are attempting to eliminate. I am more interested in the freedom you are attempting to provide me with than in mourning the things that heaven has designated for removal. Provide me with the courage to confront situations in which I have been uncertain. Clarify the areas in which I have been perplexed. Provide me with obedience in situations where I have been delayed by emotion. Your statement is accurate. 2. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not rely on your own understanding. Proverbs 3-5. Therefore, today I relinquish my obligation to comprehend all aspects prior to complying. I establish the necessity of regulating outcomes. Bolt, the act of forcing doors. To maintain the integrity of what you are allowing to disintegrate. I elect to place my faith in you in spite of my emotions. Beyond my apprehension, I elect to place my faith in you. I elect to place my faith in you in spite of the discomfort associated with transition. Father. Or restore the areas within me. What wounded me became associated with that. Heal the areas of my being that have been conditioned to refer to peace as a means of survival. Heal the areas of my being that have become so accustomed to heaviness that freedom has begun to feel foreign. The location where shame has resided. Let your mercy be more loudly voiced. The location where grief has established itself. Allow your comfort to penetrate further. Where my decisions have been influenced by fear. Allow your authority to grow stronger. Your word proclaims that you provide beauty in exchange for ashes. The oil of joy for mourning. The garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness. Isaiah chapter 61, verse 3. I am currently receiving that assurance. Your exchange has been received. I am grateful for your tranquility. I have received your restoration. And now, in the name of Jesus, I make this declaration with regard to my life. I will not retain anything that God has not intended for my upcoming season. What has caused me to be delayed will eventually dissipate. What has perplexed me will be disclosed. I will be relieved of the weight that has been weighing on me. The voice that has spoken to my former self will no longer have influence over the individual you are guiding me to become. Within the next 9 days, allow each divine separation to occur with precision. Dissolve each concealed burden. Allow each fabricated support to crumble. Allow each door that is required to shut. Full closure is achieved. And may all of the new things you are preparing to emerge at the perfect time. I affirm that I will not return to the situation from which you are rescuing me. I will not reconstruct the structure that you are deconstructing. I will not safeguard the information you have disclosed. I will never refer to bondage as comfort. Conversely, standing still, I will place my trust in you. I will proceed forward and comply with your instructions. I will fully comply and adhere to your instructions. Given that this phrase resonates within your being, please post a comment below. I relinquished it, and I receive what God has for me. Additionally, if you are of the opinion that God is reshaping your life during this period, regarding comment 760, it is acceptable. Similar to the video. Kindly subscribe to this channel. Additionally, distribute this message to an individual who requires confirmation that the departure does not represent the conclusion. It is the starting point of divine liberation. Amen. Cease, chosen one. Please do not proceed past this point. I'm not inquiring. I'm cautioning you. The information I am about to reveal has been kept hidden in the throne room of heaven until this very moment. If you leave before the end, you will miss out on the one divine instruction that has the potential to shape the next decade of your life. Heaven did not interrupt your moment to provide entertainment. Heaven intervened and reassigned you. God sent this message to your screen due to an unavoidable necessity. And if you ignore the information that is about to be delivered, which was intended to speed up the process, you will be unable to keep pace. This message was not found. You were the recipient of this message. This was not an accident. This is a divine appointment, as there are currently millions of people scrolling. Heaven chose you, not because you are perfect, but because you are trustworthy. God has evaluated your abilities and concluded that you are trustworthy. He assessed your loyalty and concluded that you are prepared. That sensation in your chest, that sudden weight, that inner stirring that keeps you from looking away is not anxiety. This serves as confirmation. Heaven has been monitoring your situation and has declared that your period of uncertainty is over. Your assignment has been delivered. Act on this word right away if your spirit confirms it before we proceed. Consider this message to be your consent to heaven. Subscribe to ensure that you do not miss God's next prophetic instruction through this channel. Please include the name of your city and country in the comments section so that we can track the location of the remnant as it ascends around the world. And I am grateful to those who support and invest in this ministry, whether through the link pinned in the comments section or through contributions. Understand this. You aren't just endorsing a message. You are entering into a partnership with a mandate. Your seed is prophetic. Indeed, that is God's word. I agree to the reassignment and heaven respects the covenant. Please remain with me. Please don't scroll away. We'll soon reveal the true nature of this divine reassignment. Why heaven made it non-negotiable, and the consequences of finally obeying the chosen one in your life. The heavens have observed your silent battles. God is aware of the confusion that has been burdening you for months. The sensation of being preoccupied, but without direction. The feeling of being misaligned despite having done everything correctly, which causes exhaustion. Every night you lay awake wondering why the doors wouldn't open. He recorded this. The reason for the ongoing delay in breakthrough. There is a reason why the prayers felt like they were hitting the ceiling before falling back down. God is well aware of the financial strain you endured while still establishing your footing. The bills grew in number as your clarity faded. The jobs that provided financial stability but stifled your enthusiasm. God observed each betrayal. The people who smiled at you but whispered death behind your back. The people you trusted with your vision used your vulnerability as a weapon. Relationships that promised loyalty but ultimately caused devastation. He is aware of the health challenges you have faced in silence. The symptoms that doctors were unable to explain. The chronic fatigue that has become your norm. The anxiety that gripped you at 3 a.m. when there was no one watching. The depression that told you you'd never find your purpose. Heaven recorded every tear you shed as you watched others succeed in the activity you knew God had called you to do. You despise yourself for being jealous. The perplexity of knowing you were meant for something more but not knowing when it would arrive. You carried the burden of a calling that no one could see. You attempted to communicate your vision to people who lacked the spiritual vocabulary required to understand it. You sat in rooms full of people and still felt completely alone, because no one could ever reach the depths of what God had placed within you. In the absence of light, you wondered about God. You whispered prayers that seemed to vanish before reaching the ceiling. You were dying inside, but you smiled in public. And the most upsetting part was the confusion. Unsure whether you were being punished or prepared. Not knowing if the silence meant God had abandoned you or was about to surprise you. Listen to this with your whole being. Chosen one. You were never left behind. You were never forgotten. You were being reinforced for an event so important that heaven had to shield you from stress until the exact moment arrived. You thought no one was paying attention. However, the Father has documented each and every moment, and heaven has spoken. This should not be overlooked. What follows is the revelation your spirit has been waiting for. Please, choose one. Listen with your heart, and not just your ears. A large number of people believe that reassignment means correction. When God changes their role, shifts their focus, or increases their responsibility, they believe something has gone wrong. However, in the kingdom, reassignment does not mean demotion. Trust is the result of reassignment. God does not assign heavy burdens to individuals. He lacks confidence. He does not hold unstable people accountable in any significant way. When God reassigns you, it indicates that you have been faithful in your previous position. I can now place more trust in you. This is why the weight appears heavier. This is why distractions seem to be more dangerous. This is why you are no longer content with comfort. A stronger structure is required for increased oil production. Deeper roots are required for greater impact. A larger task necessitates a stronger internal life. You are not being rushed by God. He is providing you with additional assistance. The pressure, urgency, and inner stirring you are currently feeling are not signs of confusion. Confusion disperses. This emotion is focused. It's oriented. It's moving forward. It is purposefully knocking from within, pleading for release at the appropriate time and in the proper manner. There is a reason for the shift in your tolerance for distraction. The reasons why certain items no longer fit are as follows. There's a reason why clarity is preferred over comfort. God is not punishing you for your past, but rather recalibrating you for the future. Please pay close attention to this section. Heaven is releasing 7 divine instructions for this season of reassignment. Avoid missing any of them. Each instruction is linked to a specific timeline and promise. In the first instruction, heaven declares that your season of scattered focus has come to an end. God is reducing the scope of your assignment to one item. From this point forward, God declares that there is only one occupation. Assignments change the seasons. Distractions have recently become more difficult to manage because they are no longer permitted to accompany you on trips. The spirit of what was once optional has been made illegal. What you once tolerated will now cause you to be delayed. Heaven doesn't require equilibrium. Heaven is requiring obedience. This is not about completing additional tasks. It refers to following God's directives without compromise, delay, or justification. In Luke chapter 12, verse 48, it is stated that, "To whom much is given, much will be required." This scripture is not meant to serve as a warning. It is intended to give you a sense of stability. Expectation is always followed by growth. Favor always carries with it some level of responsibility. Maturity is consistently necessary for advancement. Within the next 21 days, God will give you a specific assignment that will clear the fog of the previous season. Upon His summons, you will be fully informed of the task at hand. Not because someone told you, but because His voice will be unmistakable. Kindly refrain from skipping. The second instruction is even more personalized. In the second instruction, heaven directs you to eliminate any distractions that undermine your calling. Jesus whispers to your spirit, "You cannot carry destiny with divided attention." Distractions are dangerous not because they are numerous, but because they are familiar. They fit seamlessly into your daily routine. Their sensations remain consistent. They avoid presenting themselves as threats. They gradually divert your attention while reassuring you that there is no problem. Distractions include loved ones. You are willing to overlook certain behaviors. You keep returning to certain cycles because you believe they are safe. However, obedience is not the same as safety. When conviction is replaced by comfort, it can function as a prison. When it prevents one from moving forward, familiarity can become a form of bondage. As Luke chapter 9, verse 62 confirms, no one who puts their hand to the plow and looks back is qualified to serve in God's kingdom. Looking back does not mean committing a sin. It represents hesitation. It entails dividing your focus between God's calling on your life and the things He has already told you to leave behind. God will reveal the primary distraction that has been quietly draining your purpose within the next 14 days. Do not engage in negotiations if He discloses it. Please refrain from postponing. Adhere to the directive immediately. Your breakthrough will be determined by the speed with which you obey. Hold on. More information is available. The adversary intended that you never hear the following directive. This is the third instruction. Heaven expects immediate obedience, not eventual agreement. God says, I am not moved by the volume of your prayer, but I am deeply moved by your prompt obedience. Delayed obedience undermines spiritual authority. The spiritual impact is limited by partial obedience. What you postpone today will not vanish. It's a compound. Short delays become longer detours. Quiet compromises have loud repercussions. Luke chapter 6, verse 46 asks, Why do you refer to me as Lord, Lord, but you fail to obey my commands? This question is not overly harsh. It's sincere. Lordship is established by obedience, not agreement. It is possible to have profound faith in God while also subtly resisting Him. Heaven responds to actions, not intentions. Tears cannot take the place of steps. Fasting does not absolve someone of disobedience. Worship does not take priority over instruction. An additional prophecy is unnecessary. Additional confirmation is unnecessary. An additional sign is unnecessary. You must follow God's most recent directive. The neighboring residence is not expecting any additional information. It anticipates compliance. God will give you a specific opportunity to obey a message He gave you months ago within the next 72 hours. When the time comes, do not hesitate. Your immediate yes will unlock what your delayed yes was preventing. The following events will be unexpected. Please do not disregard the fourth instruction. Heaven is removing your desire to be understood. Your calling is under the watchful eye of Archangel Michael, who has declared that their obedience is no longer dependent on human approval. Every time obedience sets you apart from the crowd, you will hesitate as long as you expect others to understand your assignment. God is teaching you how to move without explanation, obey without defending yourself, and stay rooted in the absence of affirmation. Not everyone will applaud your obedience. It will cause discomfort for a large number of people. Some people may perceive your focus as a shift in direction. Some people may question your separation and believe you're becoming more distant. Others will misinterpret your obedience as extremism and your discipline as pride. This issue is definitively resolved in Galatians chapter 1, verse 10. I would not be a servant of Christ if I continued to seek approval from others. It's impossible to serve two masters. Eventually, there will be a clash between divine instruction and public approval. When you choose faithfulness, you give up the luxury of universal applause, which is not a loss. It represents liberation. God is teaching you to measure success differently, by alignment rather than the number of likes, recognition, or people who agree with you. Heaven measures the extent of its influence through obedience rather than visibility. Someone close to you will question God's direction for you in the next 14 days. Their words will be burdensome, but heaven instructs us not to be affected. Your correction is not the result of their misunderstanding. Maintain your current course of action. Stay until the end. The fifth directive is explosive. This is the fifth instruction. Heaven is arranging your actions in a specific divine order. The Lord directs the steps of a righteous man, as stated in Psalms 37, verse 23. Ordered steps indicate the existence of a sequence. Yes, if you are currently on step 3, God will not reveal step 10. He reveals what is coming, rather than what is certain. One step at a time, trust is built through obedience. The act of skipping steps causes difficulty. It is possible to arrive early and be unprepared. It is possible to force doors to open while failing to acknowledge God's protection. God's order does not imply restriction. It is protecting. Grace is present in every step at that level. By skipping the step, you are also skipping the grace. Outcomes will no longer be your main concern. It is obedience. God is accountable for the outcomes. You are entitled to obedience. When you comply, God manages the resistance, timing, provision, and confirmation. When you break the rules, you cause yourself stress that was never meant to be there. This simplifies everything. You no longer need to compare paths, pursue voices, or provide evidence. You are attentive. You relocate. You have confidence. That concludes the matter. Trust the Lord with all your heart and do not rely on your own understanding, as Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 to 6 confirm. Acknowledge Him in all your endeavors, and He will guide you. Within 21 days, the first signs of divine order will emerge. A door will open that you did not knock on. A connection will emerge that you failed to pursue. A resource that has not been requested will be delivered. That is confirmation from heaven that your obedience has started the sequence. Kindly refrain from skipping. The sixth instruction concerns your future. This is the sixth instruction. Heaven is proclaiming that your obedience will break chains for people you've never met. According to God, this is more important than you. Your loyalty will pave the way for others to follow you. You were not born at random at this time, as Esther, chapter 4, verse 14 claims. Your placement was deliberate. Your assignment isn't just for personal reasons. It's generational. Obeying the law today will have far-reaching consequences for families, communities, and nations you have never encountered. The consequences of your discipline will be passed on to your children. Your grandchildren will traverse doors. Your obedience was liberated.